It is Larry Goldberg time. This is Monday. And Larry, today was a pretty darn good day in the stock market. Tesla has been doing very well for 3 weeks, over 3 weeks now. We are now in the 300s. What were you thinking about as you saw the stock take off yet again today?
Well, we saw the stock take off, and a lot had to do with the president and what he's achieved. This is a remarkable president. He came in with, a lot of confidence on those who supported him, but a lot of opposition for those who opposed him. And I think what he has proven is that he is a completely revolutionary president, far more so than his first term. Firstly, he's a man of much greater stature in this time. Even his worst enemies, his most, his most active enemies, I think has to give him that his stature has, elevated to a very significant degree. I think of the Cassius speech about Brutus' speech, sorry, Cassius' speech about Caesar. Why, man, he doth bestride this narrow world like a colossus. He really does bestride this narrow world like a colossus. I mean, this morning's announcement about the drug prices just sealed the deal in terms of his constant, pressing on all these old shibboleths.
Yeah.
And destroying them one at a time. Drug prices. It's just a given that our drug prices are extraordinarily high and we're funding the marvelous discoveries. Yeah, that's fine. But what about the rest of the world? Why aren't they funding it? We've never asked that question. It's just a given. We just accept it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's destroyed that. It's just one shibboleth after the other. So for me, this sealed the deal. For me, when he got that group of four, I don't know if you watched the video of his announcement today. It was
I did not get the chance to, no.
a couple of hours, so it takes a lot of patience and so on. But I mean, because he talks about a whole lot of stuff before he even
Sure,
gets.
of course he does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's classic Trump stuff. But I mean, he just simply asked the question, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is my friend paying $1,800 in the United States for this Ozempic and $80 in London? Why?
Yeah.
And so he asked his team, Bobby Kennedy and team,
Yeah.
and they came back and said, look, it's all wrong. And so he's just issued this, just said, look, guys, you can't charge any more in the United States than you charge anywhere in the developed world. And he said, look, for the underdeveloped world, we'll give you a pass because those people really need it. They can't pay for it.
Mm.
But in the rich world, we're not going to pay any more than they pay.
Right.
And he's not making the drug companies the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's making the foreign, these foreign countries who will not let them charge equally. And he's saying to them, guys, you have to pay whatever we pay, you have to pay.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
And, he has achieved such stature in the world that he can make that stick. So what this morning was a demonstration, firstly, of a president who's prepared to go back to first principles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've never had it. I mean, you'd have to go back to Reagan
Yeah.
to find somebody who would go back to first principles and then have the courage, the fortitude, just the gut to say, that's it, and I'm not going to reverse. And this came on the morning of when we saw the video of Scott Bessent and, our trade ambassador talking about the Chinese
Right.
deal that they accomplished. So, I mean, I know I've talked for a long time. I
Okay,
know
it's
probably.
good. It's all good.
But what we saw was a masterclass in how to be a president of the United States of America. Absolute masterclass. And so, I was unhappy with his, as you know, with his tariff policy.
It's
But I have to admit, and I have to concede that it's working.
Yeah, the average on the betting channels, the odds of recession overnight dropped from 60% to 40%. So people recognized immediately that the tariff deal was going to be a big positive, for the economy. So obviously Tesla would benefit somewhat from the tariff deal, in that they get their batteries from China, that they have some other items that come in from Mexico or from China. So there are some slight benefits to Tesla with regard to the tariff deal, but other car companies will probably benefit more. But the stock went up initially 7%, which was more than the rest of the market. But then later in the day, it kind of flattened out as the rest of the market continued up. What did you think about that portion of the day's action?
Well, you do know that I don't really have a lot of confidence or concern about what the current stock price is because I'm fairly confident of the Tesla strategy.
Right.
And so I'm not looking at today's price. I look at today's price as a, conflict between those who have confidence in the future and those who do not.
I see. Okay.
Because the earnings don't support the
Right.
share price.
Right.
So what supports the share price? What supports the share price is you either believe in the story of Robotaxi, Cybercab, and Optimus, or you don't.
Yeah.
If you don't, current earnings do not support the share price, probably supports the share price of about 100 cents.
Mhm.
If you believe in Robotaxi, Cybercab, and Optimus, then the share price is completely underpriced.
Right. Right. Very underpriced.
It's binary.
Right. Right.
Either the value of the share is much higher than it is at the moment in the market, and you just hang on for dear life regardless of what the price is, and you keep accumulating when the price drops below what you think to be a really good deal,
Mhm.
or you get the hell out there and you sell it. You do not short it. Whatever you do, you do not short it. You can buy, you can buy a leap, you can buy a long-term share, but you do not short it and you do not buy it on margin.
Margin. Right. Right.
Those are absolute do nots. But, you can buy a leap. I am in leaps, as you know.
Yes. And buy.
But I also buy the stock.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good buy, but that's my own personal opinion because I believe in the story. The story is not going to play out right, beautiful story, step by step by step, and everything goes swimmingly. There are going to be ups and there are going to be downs, but I believe in the story, and I think Kathy Woods and her group have done a really good job at figuring out what the future holds.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But
Okay.
I'm having more difficulty than usual keeping us thematic. So I'm going to flip back to the two stories you started with. So I want to ask you, first of all, you say, okay, I'm beginning to see that the president did a great job on the tariffs, that he knew what he was doing when he went out there with his chaos, and that yes, he probably knew. I think what I reported last week was that he knew what was going on in China better than any of us. So we could read the headlines, we could read the articles, and people saying, well, they're really having a hard time in China. Or somebody else says, well, it's not that bad in China. But he's got people over there. He's got spies in China. I mean, he knew what was going on in China for sure. And so he's sitting there going, look, they're going to have to come to the table. They just don't even have a choice. And so we found that over the weekend. They came to the table, and now we have a 90-day hiatus. We have some an understanding of what's going to happen in that 90 days at least, and then we'll work on the rest of it. Where do you think we are now? How did you feel about the overall situation as it stands on the tariffs?
Look, the most important thing for me was Scott Bessent's read of his Chinese counterparties.
Okay.
He and his colleague, who was I think he was the guy who really is the trade partner for China, they felt really good about the relationship, about the Chinese views and their views, and the feeling that they could come to an agreement.
Okay, so that was the part you were most impressed with, was that these guys who were actually at the table over the weekend felt that it went extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, it was the sense that Bessent had, that we have a willing partner who wants to come to a deal and obviously has a deal in mind, and whether they exchange, their basic end state with each other at this point or not, I don't know. But my sense is, when there are two partners at that point, you're going to get a comfortable solution. Look, the Chinese have been incredible partners. Yeah, they've had enormous benefit from this partnership.
Yeah.
But it would be folly for them to lose this partnership at this stage.
Yeah.
Great folly.
100%.
So there's a lot of interest in doing it. I don't think Taiwan is going to be a factor. I don't think they believe Taiwan is going to be a factor within this next 3.5 years. I think they feel very comfortable that they're going to exceed the ability of the United States to defend Taiwan within a reasonably short period of time. And I think they're prepared to wait. Now, this all turns on, the great leader and what his view is in terms of waiting for Godot, waiting for Taiwan.
Right.
So just my sense is that they came to the table to make a deal.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing.
And by the way, just as a brief aside, Taiwan, or some reporting on Taiwan over the weekend indicated that Taiwan is completely rejiggering their defense approach to the island, and no shock, drones. So, missiles, yes, they're going to continue to build a lot more missiles, but they are really, really building up their drone defense. So,
well, they may be one of 200 countries that are currently
doing that. Exactly right. All right. So now I want to go to part B. So that's where you feel we are on the tariffs. We move forward on that. Now, the part B to what we talked about earlier was the whole thing with the pharmaceuticals. And we talked about the basics there, but I really wanted to hear more about your thinking, because I asked Grok, how much will this save in terms of the Medicare and Medicaid budget, which will drop, whatever we save on that budget, it's going to drop right to the deficit. So Grok thought it might be around 65 billion, and that was based on if the average savings was 35%. So I put that number in. I said, Grok, if it's 35% average savings across the range, and Grok said about 65 billion. I have no idea how right or wrong that is. That's just Grok. So what do you think about that aspect of this deal?
Well, I've been preparing a study of the U.S. healthcare system.
Yes.
For a podcast with my friend Dutch Rojas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an understatement.
Okay.
Because it has, in pure pharmaceutical costs, that may be a fair statement.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is have downstream effects in the whole healthcare system. Because once you have, firstly, I don't want to get too deep in this, but this is just the beginning of what is going to happen.
Right.
Because firstly, you have pharmaceutical costs dialed down at the producer level,
Mm-hmm.
at the manufacturer level.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got to look at all the downstream work in terms of these intermediaries
Right.
that take the pharmaceuticals, package them, and price them to the hospitals and to the docs and to the pharmacies. And that's where the most of the grift takes place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that grift is a lot more than $65 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think we can save $65 billion, but I think that's just a down payment in what is to come. And I've convinced from everything I've heard from Bobby Kennedy and Jay Bhattacharya and, all the other guys from the healthcare world,
Right.
I think this today is the down payment.
Okay. All right. So if we're looking at 160 billion that's already been saved by the Doge guys, add another 65 billion probably minimum in terms of this pharmaceutical drugs. You got now you've got money coming in from tariffs that we didn't have coming in before.
Over 100 billion.
Over 100 billion already coming in from tariffs. So you were suggesting that what people might be missing in terms of, this was in the green room before we started, what a lot of people might be missing in the marketplace right now is the impact of all of these things on the budget. Help me out on that, Larry. Talk to me more.
There's no doubt that as we see these, everybody says, oh, the budget deficit is so large. What's 100 billion here? What's 100 billion there? Well, what you do is when you start adding these up and piling them one on top of the other, what you start seeing is a reversal of the trend. Up to now, these governments have said, oh, well, 100 billion, 100 billion, it's not. And then what you get is these trillion-dollar deficits.
Right.
So when you start doing the saving, oh, it's only 100 billion, oh, it's only 100, oh, it's only 30. And then what you start seeing is these $1 trillion start really declining. When you run a company, you realize it's not the $10 here and the $100 there and the $300 there, which is so easy to spend. You realize it's every single expenditure that just rolls up into, those deficits.
Right.
And that's how you lose money in business.
Right.
So I am seeing this administration run this country as a business, accumulating these savings one step at a time. And instead of saying, oh, well, we can do that, it's only another couple of billion. Oh, we can do that, it's only another couple of 100 billion. Oh, we can do that. Instead of saying that, they're saying, let's roll up this saving, it's 100 billion, let's save it this. And it reverses the whole dynamic. And that's what we need. And if we get that, it'll make all the difference in the world.
So it turns out, I think, Larry, to be a cultural shift.
Yes.
Where everybody within government, all the leadership within government understands that the president, and I've seen this my entire life in business, that what the president does, if the president's desk is clean, everybody's desk is clean. If you have the president doing one thing, then everybody else knows I'm going to get a slap on the back. I'm going to get a promotion. I'm going to get the pay raise. I'm going to get the new opportunity if I'm doing what the president wants me to do. And so now you have the military coming in and saying, okay, we're already cutting before Doge ever gets to us. We're already cutting.
Yeah.
So it becomes cultural.
Yep. I keep thinking about Doris Kearns Goodwin, this team of frenemies or team of rivals. Today it's the team of frenemies. But when you think about it, so many of the members of his cabinet were from the opposite team. You know, I mean, he's put together a most remarkable group, and they are following his lead. I mean, I watched the interaction between Jay Bhattacharya and Bobby Kennedy and what was the guy, the other people on the healthcare team. And I mean, it's like you see the level of mutual respect, but you see the passion
Yeah.
of each and every
Yeah.
one of them
Yeah.
to be on, to be, on the team side, on the side, and to focus on this extraordinarily important moment and the extraordinary. I was a big critic of Trump, as you know. I opposed him in the 2016 election,
Right.
but I have to say that he's done a hell of a job, just a hell of a job, and I am very high on this team, very high.
So I said on my program this morning, Larry, that I have previous. I only make a few. I don't even want to call them recommendations. There's a few times that you've done it too. We on this program will say, okay, we think gold is going up.
Yeah.
We think bonds are going down. And I said I've been right almost exactly twice on bonds now. I said when we were at 5%, that was it. It went down. Recently, I said it was a 4.49. I said that's it, and it went down. Okay, now we're almost back to 4.49 again. I'm saying it's going down, and I think Trump is going to be the one to beat it down. I think that this is going to be his one of his maybe this week, maybe next week, that he is going to use the bully pulpit and every other tool at his disposal to beat this thing back into the threes.
Ultimately, the tool that will beat it back into the threes, if it beats back to the threes, which you may be right, is going to be inflation.
Mm-hmm. Coming down,
Ultimately,
coming down. Yeah.
yeah, that's what is going to get it down there. And I think you may be right. I've had a lot of reservations about this president, some of his policies.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought so mea culpa. I thought this whole deal with the tariffs was going to blow up in his face. I thought it was a bad deal. I think I was wrong. I mean, the evidence is strongly against
Strongly,
me.
strongly coming in good. All right, let's go ahead and switch to Robotaxi. I had a big debate over the weekend with Gary Black with regard to our impressions of what the Robotaxi, uh, what the percentage of share will be for Tesla long term. It's basically talking 2 years from now. But Gary and I had this conversation a couple of months ago on my show. And at that time, he said, Randy, I don't see Tesla getting even to 25% share worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I said, okay, Gary.
Well, if you include
Right.
China,
Yeah.
there may be a possibility, but I think they're going to get the lion's share in the US and in Europe.
Yeah. So basically that's what I said at the time. But a couple of months went by and we started it up again because I put out a thing on Robotaxi and he responded to it, etc. So he thinks under 25%. I said, okay, I'll take the overs, 25%. And then we've got Kathy Wood, who you and I think she's pretty smart. She studied this 15 ways from Christmas, and she says 50% share worldwide, 50% share. And Elon Musk, who's he's got a little bit of insider information. He continuously says it's going to be 90% worldwide. So, Larry, I know you've just said you think it'll be at least 25%. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts as to why not? We would not get Elon's number or Kathy's number?
Look, never say never. The future is impossible to predict. But the way things stand right now, I think we have a very high probability of Tesla winning 50% minimum of the US market. I would say at least a third of the European market and a solid 20%
Oh.
of the Chinese market.
Mhm, mhm,
That would be my guesstimate.
mhm, mhm.
And that would be the number that I would use to determine my positioning of my investment in Tesla.
Right, exactly.
And that's a big number. That's a very, very big number.
Very big number, yes. And I saw the other day that Uber had done an analysis where if the price of the ride comes down to $1 a mile, the usage goes up something on the order of 5x.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And Kathy Wood's
Right.
group at ARC have done a very, very solid analysis of this. I mean, Tasha Keeney knows what she's doing, and not only Tasha, the whole team is
Mm.
very strong.
Mhm.
And so I think that $1 a mile is a number that Tesla can actually aspire to.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that they can get there faster than any other vendor. And I think they have the visibility, the name, and the reach to capture that market at the $1 a mile number. They'll come into the market at higher than $1 a mile,
Oh, yes.
but they will, you know, hone in on that $1 a mile, and I think they'll reach it first, and they'll reach it with enormous take up. And so I have them. I mean, I don't necessarily fully agree with Kathy with ARC's analysis. But ARC's analysis is very, very, very interesting because if you look at the work that they do, they give you all these all those variants that you can actually, you know, you can dial in.
Yes. Yeah, you can put your own numbers in. Yeah.
Not your own numbers, your
Oh,
own probabilities. You can
probabilities. Okay.
you can bend the curve of
Got it.
probability
Got it.
for each line item.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so each one is a Monte Carlo walk. Each one is a random walk, but based on a probability on a base probability level. And so you can dial that in. And I've done that not on this latest version, but on an earlier version.
Mhm.
It's pretty convincing. So I think that this is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. The
So,
TAM is gigantic, and if you capitalize that, you get to that multi-trillion-dollar number.
so another subject that you and I love to talk about, and that Elon has been on his mind today, maybe starting yesterday and going into today, he says, okay, how do we get from 1 terawatt to 2 terawatts? What's the fastest way? And it's
No,
all
how do we get 1 terawatt
addition.
of
Yeah.
of actual AI compute?
Yes, compute.
Not
Right.
additional in general, but
Oh,
just for
just for
AI
AI.
compute.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So,
It is a gigantic undertaking. A terawatt, I mean, you're talking about, you know, in the trillion-dollar range. That's what it's going to take.
okay. But what?
So,
Mhm.
so Elon's trying to figure out how does he get $1 trillion? I spoke at great length and with great passion against buying back shares and using the money that was in the bank, and that was only $30 billion, which is 1/30th the way, one 33rd of the way, 3% of the way towards that $1 trillion. Because I knew that Elon would have this $1 trillion outlook. And we're not even talking about Mars.
Yeah.
Mars itself is $1 trillion,
Right.
outlook, but that's on a different balance sheet. On the Tesla balance sheet, I looked at, the grand plan, or what do they call it, the master plan version 3, and it has a couple of $100 billion, $800 billion. I knew that this wasn't even cutting, this wasn't even there. And so it does not surprise me that he's asking, how do we get to that $1 trillion investment in AI? And I'll tell you, it's very, very, very difficult.
So he's also saying the fastest way.
I know, but I'm telling you, it's tough. $1 trillion is a gigantic sum of money,
Right.
you
So
know?
what do you think? Do you think that as he asks the question, I'm assuming
It's
that
just multi-trillion
yeah,
dollars, really.
I I'm assuming in my mind that as he asks the question, how to do it, how to do it the fastest, that he's also thinking, how can I be part of it? If he
No,
can't,
no, 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 not part of it. How can I do it?
oh, I see. How can I do it? Okay.
I don't think he's asking to be part of it. He's already thinking about what are the basic steps he has to take to get that $1 trillion into the ground.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You're beyond me for a change, Larry.
No, I'm
I
convinced of
wasn't
it.
thinking big enough.
I'm convinced of it.
Okay. All right. So what do you think? Do you have any thoughts? I mean, my first thought was, hey, you got to build a lot of batteries because you can double the total amount of energy output in the United States. He says at the various power plants, you could double the power plant output just by putting batteries on every one of
Well,
them.
he's often talked about the 100 square miles
Of solar.
of solar that you'd need, and then you can add the batteries that you need
Right.
for that. This
Right.
gigantic amount. And then the question is, do you build the plant right next to that, or
Yeah.
are you able to transmit that energy?
Yeah.
I'm not Elon Musk. I can't figure it out. I'm certain he will, he's asked the question. That's the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm convinced he will end up there. And the $36 billion that are sitting in the bank, that's part of the deal.
I see.
Trust
I see. Okay. Okay. So from our pea brain perspective, the things that seem most obvious are batteries, solar, and mini nukes. Do you think there's any chance he would buy the very best mini nuke company out there? Or do you think there's any chance he would literally get
me.
into?
Elon Musk doesn't buy companies.
He does a few. He's bought some where the technology was really good.
No,
The
no.
what do you
He's
call it?
bought he's bought pins and needles. He's bought tiny little specks.
Yeah,
He's bought no no foundational technology.
the battery guy in Canada comes to
That's
mind.
not foundation. No, the battery guy in Canada he hired.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
professor Dern.
Yeah.
He
It's not
hired he hired him.
okay, but I thought but they also bought that lab, I think. Or yeah. They bought the
Couple of
guy with
dollars.
the charger, what do you call it? The charging.
No, he hired those guys and he sold off he sold off the company. He
All right.
hired the
Okay, but
No,
yeah.
Elon Musk does not buy
So if
companies.
he's
I,
going to
I
do
don't,
mini nukes, he would do it from the ground up.
yes, if he were to build mini nukes, he would do it from the ground up. Look, I looked at a serious company in Austin
Mhm.
that are building mini nukes.
Mhm.
I've looked at several actually, not only that one, I've looked at several companies. I don't know enough about it to feel comfortable buying it. And I'm not prepared to buy something where I don't understand
The technology.
no, it's not the
Oh.
technology that's the problem.
Hmm.
It is what is government going to do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the real problem is, the regulatory regime.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So until I understand the regulatory regime, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to invest in it. But, I think Elon's thinking seriously about it. And whether it's nuclear, whether it's whatever it is, I think he's thinking very seriously about it. What he'll come up with is whatever he comes up with, but it's going to be he who does it.
Got it. Got it. Very interesting. Holy mackerel. I don't know how to turn that into a thumbnail. but that's really, really interesting.
And then the bottom line is that's why he's not prepared to give away the money that he's got.
Yeah. Gonna need it for that an even bigger project. Well, of course, he's got massive compute, which if you're going to get into the energy business on another level, I mean, a huge
Well, he's only got a very small component of what he's going to end up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at what, the second big implementation is going to be is huge.
Yeah.
And if you look at what he's putting by way of batteries in the ground, and I mean, we are talking about some massive expansion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so natural gas is one of the things that people are talking about right now as the other clear winner in the next 20 years in terms of energy. And a lot of what the conversation is about building these plants, building these facilities right on the top, right in Texas where the natural gas is, or in Montana where the natural gas is. So you're not transmitting the gas to another location, you're building it right on top of it. So this is another possibility, I suppose, of a way to get there quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple different solutions. And, natural gas is very important. He's piping in natural gas into Boca Chica for and now he's actually looking to extract both, natural gas and carbon and oxygen from the air in Boca Chica, and through processing it as he's going to have to do in Mars. So, I mean, but that's not going to do it. That he's going to need more than that. I mean, a terawatt of power is a lot of power.
A lot of power. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. So from where I'm sitting, and you know how optimistic I am, I look at, I don't see the risk side of the next couple of months for the market or for the.
Here's the big risk, Randy. There's one big risk.
Okay, one big risk. Okay.
𝐑𝐚𝐧𝐝𝐲 asked Tesla to explain how it's going to handle very difficult situations from
weather.
Yeah. And the risk is, frankly, that something goes wrong early in the process of rolling out the full self-driving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very significant risk. Either delay in the robotaxi due to 𝐑𝐚𝐧𝐝 or some problem that happens early. And there are going to be problems. There are going to be problems, believe me. So we are entering into a very risky period. The reward is very high. If things go well and the experiment goes well and everything, we'll probably see a significant jump in the share price.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one little problem that the press can glom onto, we'll probably see a decline by 25% of the price before it goes back up again.
Yeah.
So it's business as usual.
Well, I understand that, the biggest problem would be that if the one of the robotaxis kills an animal, because then we'll have PETA out there and that'll be the worst. Yeah.
Well, if it kills a person, that would be a lot worse.
I don't know. See, I'm not sure which is going to be worse.
No. Kills a person,
I understand. Come on, Larry, play along here. Okay. So, all right. So, any other updates you've seen out there? I'm on vacation, Larry. I'm depending more on you right now as to what you might have seen out there.
I'm hardly the Tesla bull you could rely upon.
So the rest of everything else happening in Tesla world, I did have another wild thought, not as wild as your idea that he would take over the entire terawatt. That's I love it. I just can't get over it. But I did have what was my other? Oh, whoops! I'm going to forget it now. I guess it's really more Brian Wong's idea. Brian Wong thinks that Elon is also planning to pass Jensen in terms of total compute manufacturing, chip manufacturing by 2028.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a great possibility in that. The thought did pass through my mind when I looked at, what he's talking about in terms of compute capacity. It's more than possible. I did a study with Grok and posited, what could happen in terms of NVIDIA versus Dojo, and it's more than possible. I mean, it'll require some incredible work on the part of the technology team, the
Right.
IC technology team. So, and Jensen,
It's really good.
listen, my NVIDIA investment is doing very well right now. I bought those options,
Yeah.
3 weeks ago. I'm
Yeah.
looking pretty good now.
No, no.
Anyway, don't underestimate NVIDIA, but don't underestimate Elon's capacity
Yeah.
to move very rapidly. And, look, NVIDIA's big value add is, their software. I think that Elon can add more than that software in terms of his ability to simplify it to its absolute, least to the minimum requirement to achieve the goal, and therefore reduce the cost of operation. So that's an area that I think what happens over time is software just accrues and accrues and accrues, all this backlog, all this legacy. And I don't think CUDA's free of it. I think CUDA has a lot of its own legacy. And I think there's an opportunity to somewhat, leap ahead here for Elon, starting from scratch.
All right. Well, Larry, let's briefly go through the numbers here. So we had the bonds, as we already mentioned, they were up today. They're still up in the going up even more in the pre-market, up another 1.2%. I mean, sorry, 1.2 basis points. So we're sitting at 446.
What you really mean is the bonds are down, but the interest rates
Bonds are down, the rates are up. Yep, exactly. But we're in agreement. You're thinking, are we capping out here or not? Do you think we're capped out?
close to it.
Close to it. Okay. All right.
I'm not as optimistic as you are in terms of timing. It may take a little while.
Might take a while. Okay. Oil went up a little bit today, $62 now.
The Saudis are very, very bullish about oil. They feel that the demand is strong. U.S. Production seems to keep climbing. Actually, the drill count is rising, which is a very good indicator. So we'll see. I mean, I think this is a good situation for oil.
Natural gas up 1.26% today, but it's right in the middle of its recent range at $3.70. Not sure whether I haven't heard any weather reports that would drive it one way or the other, but I'm guessing that there is going to be a massive amount of effort to ship natural gas overseas. I think that's part of the tariff thing.
Yeah, look, we have a new chancellor in Germany. He is going to fire up the nuclear reactors. He is going to change Germany's stance. He's going to buy a lot of gas, but he's going to move forward in terms of German coal, German nuclear, and over time, that's negative for our natural gas.
Right. But Germany's only one country. I think Japan, Australia, no, Japan, the Pacific Islands, let's call them.
Very grim. Yeah.
Yeah, they need the natural gas for sure. Gold, Larry, it got slammed yesterday. We're down to only we're down to 32.43. We're still really good. What do you think happens because the gold and the bond market are definitely being impacted by China and Japan. what do you think happens if we get these tariffs all squared around over the next few weeks? Will China and Japan start buying bonds?
That's the story, Randy. I know you're looking short term,
I know. Yeah.
but long term, gold is the slave of the American dollar,
Yep.
and the American dollar is the slave of gold. I think we're in for an American renaissance.
So the dollar goes.
The dollar is going to go up, gold is going to go down. But between now and then, gold's going to fluctuate, depending on what is the current thing.
Right. Right. Okay. So silver up 0.52% in the pre-market, 32.8, which is where it's been really for a while. Copper up 0.31, also where it's been, 4.63, very, very close to where it's been. The dollar, as you just mentioned, is getting stronger. Obviously, you could predict it based on what's happening with the tariffs. The Bitcoin has slid now, 1,700 today, but it's the first down day in a while. But it's still sitting at 102.8.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good shape, Bitcoin. The big news would be what was going to happen tomorrow, but the pre-market isn't giving us any hints, Larry. The Dow is down 0.05%.
Yeah, it wouldn't amaze me if we see a slight slippage across the market
tomorrow.
Because it was such a strong day.
But you also know what happens tomorrow, Larry. We do have economic news tomorrow, CPI.
We do. We have CPI.
And we also have, the NFIB report hasn't been moving the market at all. But the CPI does come out tomorrow. So,
but I have to say, Randy, this market has been so slack in understanding the different signals that you have to think that, the CPI thing is not going to be of much moment at all. I mean, when you think about what this Federal Reserve chairman did, it was such a political move that I don't know if any of this news makes any impact to him.
Yeah.
And ultimately to the market. Yeah.
You know what, Larry, before we go, I do want to come all the way back to the beginning again, because there was this, I'm a red-blooded conservative, especially, well, not especially on all things, but economically.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so when I first heard about the deal on the pharmaceuticals, it kind of hit my conservative bones a little hard, because I do truly believe that price controls can never work, that ultimately something has to give if you try to control prices. But as I read more of the articles this morning, it became more and more evident that this is at the heart of it, as you said, it's a negotiation with the other countries, but it's also a negotiation with the pharmaceuticals, saying to the pharmaceutical companies, well, we're the largest buyer. We are a customer of this product, and we're not going to let you sell to the U.S. government at these prices. And
it absolutely is.
Right.
It is absolutely instructing the pharmaceutical companies that they're now subject to the market.
Right. To the real market.
To the real market. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they can no longer set these prices, at their whim.
Right.
I mean, this has been the furthest you can get to a natural market. The furthest you can get.
Yeah. So we're really getting back to a market where the buyer has some say. The U.S. government, the number one buyer.
This is the biggest buyer in the world. It's going to say, we're not going to pay more than the smallest buyer in the world. Well, actually, we're prepared to let the smallest buyer, we're prepared to let the third world buy it, whatever you said it. Right. But we're not prepared to let the European markets or the Asian markets, pay a tenth of the price or a fifth of the price or a third of the price that we pay.
Exactly.
You want to sell it to us, you sell it to us at market, and the market is what these guys are paying.
Right.
Or these guys pay more and we pay less, whatever.
Yes, something in between. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry, I commonly ask you this, and you almost always have a word of wisdom. Now, I'll give you as much time as you need. but in whatever this is in the world of podcasting, dead space is not good. So can you give us a word of wisdom?
I have to say the word of wisdom I have this evening is based upon this journey that I've gone on the Trump train.
Okay.
And I have to say that the word of wisdom is believe in Trump.
Believe in Trump. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never believed I would ever say that, but
Yeah.
here I am. Believe in Trump. He's proved to me that he has the understanding of the market, the markets, and how the world works. And for all his personal quiddities and oddities, that understanding is very important for us at this moment.
All right. I think that's a very good word of wisdom, Larry. So with that, I'll let you go for another week until Friday. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.